And that often this is a license for young people to get involved in the work of more mature businesses. They actually bring tremendous value into the setting. And so I think you can't fight that, and so when you and I go to these conferences and they're explaining how to use Yammer in your customer-facing relationships, I think that seeking expertise from other disciplines, it becomes a multidisciplinary solution, is really critical, because we can't keep up on top of it, and there are always experts within each one of these technologies. So it's not to be ignored. That's where dinosaurs die. But it's also not to be, it's not necessarily our skill set. Our skill set is bringing knowledge about the business that we run and the customer that we have. I mean, it really does all revolve around the customer. It's not technology, it's that interface with this thing called the market that's critical.
To some degree, I've had to look at it from a generational standpoint, because I have millennials, I have Ys, I have X's, I have like me, and you know that you have to provide them the tools that they're comfortable with using. One of the things that I've always put the heat on our marketing and product development side is if you can't understand what's happening with iPhones and iPads and the customer interface to that, then we're going to miss something in our company, because that's eventually filters down into business and how businesses want to interrelate. It just has to pervade that, and for us to, if we don't, I profess that we don't, is to sit back and say, well, I don't need to worry about that. That's the worst thing my product marketing, product development management people can say is, we don't need to worry about that.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Exactly. Because then you're out of step with your customers. Yeah. Getting back to sort of the core issue of starting businesses, fostering entrepreneurs, I think sometimes the conversation breaks down when people are leery or suspicious of the ability of the public sector and also educational colleges and universities to play a role in that. You obviously both have sort of real world experience. Can you talk about some of the ways you think that collaboration can be effective? In other words, do you need all three legs of the stool to really get the most bang for your buck?
I think that there are three important things that government can do, and that's support education, and support education. Because that education has to be current and realistic. Our model is that it includes experiential education. All of our undergraduates spend 3 6-month periods of time during their undergraduate years working for companies. And so without education, and education not for young people, but education for older people who need to try to keep up with the radical changes that are going on. So I think education is the biggest thing, and needs to be invested in. On a local level, I think space is tremendously important. There are many privately run incubators. If government could help support that real estate investment that brings people together in collaborative spaces, and the most successful ones we've seen are just wide open spaces where there are clusters of desks with ventures, and you watch the ventures interact with one another, and a health sciences company is helping an apparel company in some odd way. So government could have a role in that, and certainly in Massachusetts we are so tangled with regulation around formation and just staying on top of the paperwork. It's very difficult. So those are three things. One of them is three things itself. But
David, you've delved into this a little bit yourself here of late with trying to create more people like yourself. Talk a little bit about that.
Oh, well, another trite thing I sort of profess to do, that when you've started a business and you've reached a point where the business is very successful, I feel like you have an obligation to give back, and I use the terms that you earn, you learn, and you return, or you learn, you earn, and return in that sequence, because you don't earn before you learn. But I think it's important for business leaders to cultivate that environment wherever they are, if they're in Charlotte or whatever the market is. I do think, Cheryl and I talked to this outside, I do think from an education standpoint, ideally we have really smart people in the company, and what I really, my ideal guy or lady is really smart and can have my personality. So, so I don't have both of those. I'm kidding, but what we find so often is some of the smartest technologists in the company often can't carry on, what I'm going to say, can't carry on a conversation with empathy with a customer. Because typically when a customer calls in with a problem, you know what it's like. I can't get on well, this doesn't happen to us, but for you, it happened to me the other night. I couldn't get my email to work, and I was pissed. But it wasn't my company, it was AT&T, so nothing I could do about it. But to have the empathy that you have to have and guide a customer, in our case a business customer, back to where they need to be to understand that we're going to solve this problem, so just settle down. But it's been age old ever since we started the business, because we don't have call centers, we have operations centers, and that's been the biggest challenge. And in fact, I'm on the advisory board of one of the schools here, and it was funny, we were talking about curriculum. It was a graduate business school, and I said, what you're missing here is you don't have a course on human capital. You've got it on raising money and accounting and all marketing, but where's the importance of human capital? Because I will tell you, in our case, probably one of the best things that ever happened to us, besides from the fact they paid a lot of money for the company, was Welsh Carson. And they came large, they managed $20 billion, and you would think, and you hear all kinds of things about them as ruthless, etc. The first day, they said, the three most important people to us in your company are you, your CFO, and your HR VP. Yeah. And I didn't have one. But they understand human capital is what drives companies. And as I began to look around, particularly at this school, I said, you really need to be focusing on that, because that is going to make the difference as we move forward. As much as technology is doing, it's still about people.
Yeah, I anecdote about me, and I think it's more a value than an aptitude. But when I was in business school, in the second year of business school, I was in entrepreneurial studies, and actually my team won the venture idea for the class, and so I went tearing into the professor's office, expecting him to pat me on the back, and which he did in a way, but I said, so this is what we did. What do you think I should do professionally? And he said, HR. And I was offended. I was offended. It was sort of like, what I can do the financial, I can do the marketing, I can do all these things. I understand the product that we sold, but HR. And really, the reason I'm enjoying I have the best job in the world, because I work with just hundreds of young people who are trying to start stuff. My passion is all around the people, and getting people to understand that from an early age is so important. And it gets disguised when the buzzwords fly and the technology is there's huge capital involved, et cetera. But if you're pissing your chairman off, seriously, right? It doesn't matter. It's really interesting.
One other thing I want to cover, particularly given where we are today, Northeastern, it was a big story when Northeastern came here. Johnson & Wales has come in recent years. UNC Charlotte has opened an uptown campus. And I'd like to hear both of your opinions. Yours from a Boston perspective, since so much of the success of the Boston economy is that concentration of higher education and those advanced degrees. Yeah. And David, if you can talk from what you're seeing locally and what you still think we need. So.
Yeah, there's not any one thing. When you think of Johnson Wales, Northeastern, and some of the other things that are happening, I look at that and saying, all these things are good for Charlotte, because what it creates is the warm feeling for me is an environment where there's a vibrance. There's things beginning to happen, and there's not any one is a silo. They're all interrelated at some point in time. It's hard for me to say exactly where, but and to think that Queens or Northeastern or UNCC or CCPC would try to do things like this as opposed to trying to collaborate to do it is just so wrong, and they're not. I mean, they are working together, and that's the only way I see Charlotte continuing to thrive and grow, because that's where you're going to find out where the real needs are, and not every one of those can meet every need. So you have to determine what are they best at. All of the technology, and every one of those, and all the businesses have technology undergirding everything they do, whether it's through the media side of things or wherever. So I'm encouraged by that, and I'm really glad to have Northeastern here, because what I see is the ability. I mean, we're a very busy bunch of people. We don't have time to say, well, I'm going to take 6 months off and go back to school. But when there are outlets for the types of training and education we need, that's one of the things that's hurt higher education in Charlotte and everywhere is the economy. Because it was at one point businesses would, take care of the training, if you will, put their employees into different programs, whether it was an MBA, executive MBA, or particularly those areas of higher. And they're saying, well, we got to really control the cost. So to be able to get that education in pieces, if you will, where you can select and choose the best courses that are going to work for you, I'm encouraged by that, because we're only going to be as good as the education we have here. And there's a whole nother issue around secondary and all that, which fortunately I'm past that right now. I don't have to worry about that piece of it.
Dan, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But that's what I see, and it's kind of a vague answer, but I don't think you look at one. I think you look at the whole movement. And maybe Charlotte needs to do a little bit more about what is happening in the educational opportunities in the city, because that's going to drive, when the Chamber attracts a company here, I know they talk about that, but if Northeastern and Queens and UNCC, they're not pushing to do that. And I was involved with UNCC at one point, and I said, they wanted to understand why they weren't engaged with more businesses in Charlotte. And I said, because nobody knows what you do. It's about marketing. And so anyway, they've changed that. They've gone after it. But anyway, that's kind of the way I
Dan, what can we learn from Boston?
Well, I think that what the educational institutions in Boston fosters more than brain power, which is important but is sort of recognized, is the diversity that comes out of that. And innovation is really driven by diverse minds coming together and creating something of value. So whether it's engineering or marketing or health sciences or computer sciences or whatever, you need all of those people in a learning mode, and then they need to be stimulated in some system to start engaging in commerce in some fashion, and that's where the community needs to. I think that the university's primary business is to educate students. So I'm going to play a little bit counter to what Dave said. And yes, they should market to businesses, because that's where their students should end up. And so they need to help. But the businesses, and particularly people like Dave and the incubators, need to back up to the shipping dock of the universities and actually engage. My father was an early venture capitalist in Boston, and he infiltrated Harvard and MIT and walked through the labs to find people with interesting ideas, because there wasn't the venture industry at that point. Now there's not plenty of capital, but there's capital there, and the universities are sort of have sidewalk sales of what's going on in the university. So the connection needs to be made between the university and the outside world, and the connection that we find really helpful is bringing alumni back who have built businesses to work as mentors with these ventures. And so starting mentoring programs and offering those mentoring programs to universities might be a good idea if they don't have them. Because these young people don't know what they don't know. And they're pretty sure that they have, and the shape of future products and services are in the minds of 20-year-olds right now. They're not in our minds. And so what needs to happen is the intersection of the experience of someone who's built a tremendous company going to help individuals recognize how that is done. And that interaction is very powerful, and it needs to happen at the institutional level as well. So I think Boston prospers because of the diversity of ideas that are coming out of its universities. But it can be replicated anywhere.
Let's take a few questions from the audience. Who's got the $1 million question?
This is a $2 million question.
I like it, double or nothing.
Do I get a percentage if I answer it right?
Actually, I have a couple of questions. I've had some friends over the years that, let's say, they're just regular people, and the light goes off, and they've gone from throwing a frisbee to a dog and chatting to having 10,000 employees, and a couple of people come to me and said, I found what I want to do for the rest of my life, and the light just went off. If you deal with a lot of people, have you seen patterns where the node points where things come together and somebody says, wow, is there such a thing as that, or is there an individual with everybody?
So where they get the spark and they see what they must do, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, or they say, I can do this.
Yeah, yeah.
I get it. I can do this, and I'm gonna, and they continue to build and grow, and suddenly they've got this wonderful thing they're doing.
Right. No, I think that it often happens, but it doesn't always happen with the last piece, which is it ends up being a company of 10,000 people. But I am seeing tremendous energy around ideas, and then as those ideas grow and more people get involved with those ideas, people really fasten on them and commit to them. But I'm not sure I'm getting at what you're asking.
Are there any pathways? Are there any points where certain things come together where somebody gets an idea and you've seen it happen over and over again? Is there any pattern? Maybe that's what I'm asking.
I have a tough time answering that. It has in my life, but I'm a very passionate person. When I get excited about something, I really dig in. I also can move from one thing to the next thing and feel equal passion. So I think that's a personality type. If you are, I'm struggling with this question.
I think one thing, well, a couple things from my thinking about it is, fortunately, Dan was trying to answer it, and I could sit here and think for a while. I think there are entrepreneurs out there that are serial entrepreneurs. It doesn't really matter, and I hate to stereotype it, it doesn't really matter what it is. They just have a business mind, and they can create a new dog food over here, or they can build an airplane company over here. That's strange. It's somewhat like the blind squirrel, Gene, I think, in that there are some people that all of a sudden they find that niche. And I'd say I'm one. I think I found something that that I really enjoy. People ask me, not to just talk about me, but after Welsh Carson bought us, for even today, people have said, "So what are you doing now?" And I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing that I'm not doing? And I said, "I'm still running the company." He said, "Well, did you have a contract?" I said, "No." I said, "Listen, when we did this deal, I asked our team what they wanted to do, and they said they wanted to continue running. They like what we're doing, and they want to continue to build a company." And I said, "I'm happy. My challenges are a lot different, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else right now than where I am." And it only took me 25 years to find it, but I do think there are people that fall right into it. I don't know whether it's divine grace or what causes it, but I think there are also others who are just as happy creating 10 different companies and doing that. That's their passion.
I have to counsel people. They walk into my office and they say, I'm working with five ventures. I said, you just described a problem. You got to narrow it down to one and really work on it.
Do well.
But there is a mindset, a personality type, and I actually am one of these people where I'm constantly thinking, well, maybe I should get into the data center business. That sounds kind of cool.
Have a checkbook and you can.
You know, you know, I've always had a profound sense that we're only on this earth for a certain period of time, and I want to experience as much as possible, learn as much as possible. I love building things. I hate ambiguity, but I love ambiguity because I can get rid of ambiguity if there is ambiguity, if you follow that. And, you know,
Well, ambiguous to me.
it is ambiguous. I like trying to build something concrete out of something that is mushy. But then when it's built, you know, and people start saying what are quarterly results, and you know, I don't think of this as this is the thing that I want to do for the rest of my life. I get restless. So,
Can I ask one more question?
yeah,
Somebody else might have.
someone always know how to answer it.
I've read a bunch of books recently on innovation. One of them is Stephen Johnson, Where Good Ideas Come From. And one of the people that he quotes in there, I forget the fellow's name, but talks about this theory called the adjacent possible. And that to me is just fascinating.
No, that's
Incredible that there's something going along and all it takes is a few things and it all works.
right.
Yep.
And do you
I subscribe to that wholly. It's what we were talking about, walls and cycles and stuff. It happens within a company. It happens starting new companies.
Happened to rain today. Oh, good. That's why it happened. I mean, I believe that. I believe that.
But the adjacent possibility is that you see parallel opportunities that
And the
can
one you're
enhance
focused on.
what you're
Yeah.
doing, and it's not just jumping tracks.
Do you teach your students to look for that?
My students teach me, yes, I do. To answer that seriously, I do precious. I am a Cheryl. Don't repeat this. I am a faux academic because I've spent my life building companies, and I was lucky enough to find Northeastern that valued that experience. And they said, "Come run these incubators." So there are 2 incubators here, and what I have to do is keep teams moving forward and keep teams seeing the possibilities. And I do that mostly through questioning, and they deliver the answers as opposed to the typical professor that has the answers and lectures. And so smart people, given a few questions that lead to the adjacent ideas or the next idea that will accelerate growth, they're the ones that have to find it out. It's tremendous. It's tremendously exciting.
Let's get 1 or 2 more before I turn it over to Cheryl, if we have 1 or 2 more. Anyone?
How have you seen the modes of continuing education evolve over the years?
Continuing education meaning sort of lifelong learning. Again, I'm not a lifelong academic, but I see a lot of people, particularly around technology, and I'm going to now sound like I'm contradicting myself. Earlier I said you don't need to know everything, but you have to know the boundaries. So I think that a lifelong learner is a tremendously important thing in this. I do teach one class in which I get up in front of people, and my favorite class is to go from hunter-gatherers to 2011, and we are going through such a profound change in our economy, in our society, driven by technology. And we all see it, the way people work, the way people are motivated to work, the kind of incentives they use. They're distributed around the world, yet they're working for one company. This is not easy to deal with if you're over the age of 40, and so it forces people into a mode where they have to learn. And so I think there's a tremendous opportunity, and at Northeastern, I don't do any of this work, but I think there's a tremendous opportunity for what I would say just-in-time education for people, who are maturing.
I remember the cavemen had the Facebook likes for the wheel and fire. Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to ask one more question. I've read that when you're collaborating in terms of solving a problem, being able to having a system where you can have multiple inputs, one on top of the other. I was just wondering, it's very helpful. I was wondering if you've seen that with the Yammer you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and I'm not advertising for Yammer, but because there are a lot of
similar systems.
Yeah, there are a lot of platforms out there, and this just happened to be one that one of my engineers started using, and it just went, just took off. And the thing about it that I enjoy is, because I'm subscribed to it, is I can go in and I can see what they're talking about. Some of it I don't understand, but because a lot of our engineers get in, they start talking about this version of this particular software, what have you, or application. But to see how it builds on itself, and for me to sort of work through that, it is so valuable to me to see who, not only what they're talking about, but who's weighing in. Because it is all across our company. It's not just the engineers. It's guys and ladies that I said, well, I didn't realize they knew anything about that. So it is tremendous. And I've been one that have really fanned that fire and trying to keep it going. In fact, we looked at having a customized platform for the whole company. It was a little premature. What I realized is we needed to back up and really be able to swim in it well before we built the pool, if you will. So, but it's been very valuable.
So
That's an internal system.
Yeah.
So that's what what I meant to say when I said diversity. I wasn't talking about racial, ethnic, cultural diversity. I was talking about just different minds addressing a problem. Nobody has the the key to it all anymore. It may never have been the case, but it's certainly not the case now. So you have to have systems. You have to develop systems, and I sit in the hotbed of them in a university, where just these crazy ideas come together. The story of IDEA, with we've worked with over a couple hundred quote unquote ventures. Now many of these are really early stage, and you wouldn't consider them ventures. But they're starting to get very, very serious. We started within the business school, and we're pushing it out now so that it's a university resource. In the first 20 ventures, probably 95% of those ventures came from the business school. Now, I think the number is 36% of the entrepreneurs are from the business school, and all the rest are from all the other disciplines. You can't put together a competitive product, build a competitive market with like-minded people. You have to force diverse ways of thinking of problems. It's just too complicated, too fast-moving. You need people. You need the receptionists who see certain things in their interaction with a customer, talking to the systems people that are building the CRM. That all of these people have to, and you have to have the voice of the customer in there as well. It's really critical, and the great thing is that the technology facilitates it. It can get out of hand and overused, but theoretically, the technology allows for this discourse, where before such was impossible.
The environment changes rapidly. One of the biggest things, people ask me what keeps me asleep at night, keeps me awake at night. Freudian.
You're tired.
Freudian. What keeps me awake at night, it used to be if we have a power failure. That was the thing that was just unbelievable. But the thing that really keeps me awake more now is our company's grown. We're 330 people. And what I've begun to see is the culture we've had as a company. And some of it's because of social media and other things. In fact, I was with one of our office marketing coordinators in Nashville last night, and she said something to me like, well, because she took care of everything for this event we were there for, and she said, I probably stepped over the line in trying to get this or that done. And I said, Penny, it's that attitude that I'm afraid that we're seeing less of in the company. Yeah. I see a number of people who are not realizing that they can do whatever they want to do. They don't have to stay in this silo, I'll use that word, and it really is bothering me. And I've really gotten, I didn't come up with this, but in our last call, I said, guys, you need to understand, I have a mindset of constructive discontent. Yeah. Now, that came from the chairman of Coca-Cola. And everybody kind of looked at me and said, do you understand what that means? And I said, I'm never going to be satisfied. And if you're sitting there happy with what you're doing and don't want to do anything else, that's great. But you need to have constructive discontent, because it's the only way you grow. And the tools, whether they're technology or digital tools, what have you, it does get to that to me. And I didn't mean to diverse off that question, but I wanted to make sure that, to me, what I see, that's what excites me about the company, is the challenges are so different now. And I fight hard to make sure that we keep that culture that says we're entrepreneurs. And I hate to see people in there saying, well, I didn't know I could do that. And I said, why can't you do that?
See, you own in a literal sense, no, I guess you sold your company, but you drove the creation of the company, but the reason it was successful is you were smart enough to give ownership to everybody.
Yeah, we push it. Yep,
and I'm not even talking about equity. I'm talking about step over the line, Penny. You're not going to get in trouble.
Yeah, it's about rights and responsibility.
Right. It's so cool.
That is a great way to close, I think. Let's thank these two gentlemen for their insights. Over to the boss.
Yeah, no, this, truly, this has been one of the most fun conversations that I've sat in a long time. And I think part of it is just, you both are just so authentic, and you can see the passion that you have for entrepreneurship and for helping the next generation of entrepreneurs. But you're fun, you're well balanced. I know, Dave, you say you're not the smartest, but you balance the smarts with the humility. You just don't see it's the smarts with the humility. And I have to say, Dan, you are not a faux faculty member, because every faculty member that I have met at Northeastern, particularly those who teach here in Charlotte, truly are that scholar practitioner. To many of them, 20 years of previous business experience or some industry experience that has now translated into the classroom. And that's what makes it more rich and valuable for our students. So I'd like to ask all of you to join me in thanking Dave and Dan and Eric for moderating. Our appreciation. We will continue this series in November, and interestingly enough, our topic is on family business planning and succession planning when you're in a family business. So it's a nice dovetail to, so now you've had this innovative idea, sparked a company. Now, how do you go and pass it off? And Ron Norelli, who is the CEO of Norelli & Company, who also happens to be an alum from the university, will be our Northeastern, or our local leader. And then Kimberly Edelston, who's on faculty in our College of Business, will be coming down for that. So I invite you to come back.